providers within their niche, within their industry, so that they can attract all of those eyeballs that are looking for the different educational material to help them through their buying journey. And I think that's something that is incredibly prevalent right now, and that is really a must for all businesses, and certainly businesses in a B2B world, to the point where we're even starting to see a huge increase in business to business e-commerce.
Failure may be inevitable, but there are scientific values behind it. We've got to learn how to fail faster so we can learn smarter. Join me and let's uncover the hack behind failures. In these episodes, we'll get inside the minds of the successful, discuss the failures they've had in the past, and analyze what made them tick, so we all learn from it. Welcome to Set to Fail podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Indolos. Hey everybody, this is Joseph. You're listening to Set to Fail podcast, where we analyze all sorts of failures, pain points, turning adversity into potential business opportunities. So we help enable aspiring entrepreneurs, business professionals, business leaders, embrace failing forward, and hopefully they can execute smarter with their day-to-day tasks. So it's a great pleasure for me to introduce our guest today. Lois Holzman is the Director Business Development at Altitude Marketing. And at the same time, he is an entrepreneur, principal at Quinn City Realty LLC. Welcome to the show, Lois.
Thanks, Joseph. Really appreciate you having me on.
Very excited to have you on this episode. So I have a typical format of my podcast where we have a two-part type of questions. The first one would be the basic failure insights questions, and then also the industry questions. So to start, maybe if you can tell our audience a little bit about the overview of your background, as well as Altitude Marketing, the current businesses that you're running. That'll be a great start for us.
Sure. So I guess you could say a little bit of an unconventional background as far as getting into marketing and certainly real estate. I'm here in Pennsylvania in the United States, and initially going to college, went for sports medicine. Very hands-on and kind of learn by doing type of person. And so that was great for the formal schooling portion, but quickly learned that that wasn't something I wanted to build a career out of, and started looking into sales and marketing jobs. And so when you start to talk about failure, in a way, going to college and then realizing, man, this is not what I want to do, but that's what you graduate with, kind of puts you at a rock and a hard place coming right out of, okay, well, what am I really going to do here? So got involved with a startup technology company right out of college with some graduate students. I was actually the first employee there, selling, websites and software development. And that really took me to really cut my teeth from an entrepreneurial standpoint, and really put myself out there in the local business community. And in doing so, that's how I ended up finding Altitude. About 16 months or so into that startup, my partner and I, that I ended up bringing on during that time frame, 4X'd that startup's business and helped them get acquired by a larger firm down in Philadelphia. And in that time, we expanded our personal circles of influence. And that's where I met the founder and CEO of Andrew Stanton at Altitude Marketing. He was really not selling, or I should say really not buying what I was selling. Again, we were doing websites, and Altitude Marketing is a full service integrated B2B marketing company. And so building best-in-class, world-class websites is part of what we do. And at the time, I wanted to be able to help support their development team. And although, again, he wasn't buying what I was selling, he did see something in me and was tossed me a piece of software business because Altitude doesn't develop software that we ended up winning and securing that business with that tech startup I had mentioned, and was very thankful for him for that, for kind of extending the olive branch a little bit in that regard. And so I went to thank him, and he said, I think there's some other opportunities we may have here together. And at the time, I was thinking that was a referral relationship. And as the weeks went forward, I came to learn that he was looking to build out a sales team, and was really looking to see if that was something I'd be interested in jumping on board and helping build out with him. So that's kind of where landed me at Altitude, and been there now for 6 years, and we've seen some really tremendous growth at the firm. This year, we're going to have another record year on top of a record year last year, growing in revenue, growing employees, growing in clients. And so very, very stable and supportive in that role and in that line of business.
That's awesome. Congratulations with the success. So, and I do believe, part and parcel of the success would be some of the failures you've experienced in the past. So, for the benefit of our listeners, a lot of these insights could really help provide armor building, if you will, to
Sure.
some of our listeners, right? So maybe some of your significant failures, or maybe challenges that you've overcame, and then what are the key takeaways, while you're building the team, trying to smash goals and things like that. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Sure. And I'm actually going to take you back 15, 20 years previous to that technology startup, even. Probably call it the biggest failure, but also one of the greatest success that I can call back to where I am today. In college, thinking about sports medicine and not being my path that I needed to go down, I started with a network marketing company, and was selling nutritional products. And over the 2 years of doing that, kind of learning in a different way than your typical college setting. Still going to school, of course, but kind of doing that on my own time. Certainly different than many of the other friends that I had at college. The failure that I would call it there is I really kind of just broke even on that, business, on that network marketing business. It wasn't a great success financially per se. But where it was successful was breaking me out of my comfort zone, being able to see that there are other avenues, there are other places to go, and ways of doing not just business, but in life, that you can make something of yourself. It opened me up to people and networking and public speaking, building teams, really my first foray into any type of sales role. And so that was the spark that I do attribute now, fast forward 15, 20 years later, what is happening in my career now as I continue to grow, as continue to see, other types of failures. And that could be, lost deals that you just for whatever reason didn't come through the pipeline. It could be, on the real estate side, underestimating how much it's going to take to renovate something and having to eat some costs over time, and lose some profit on a deal in that regard. So certainly can elaborate more if and as needed, but really that early failure in my late teens and early 20s is what I attribute a lot of the failing forward towards success here, as I'm later in my career.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you talked about some of challenges about customers and buying journeys and all, right? So have you seen a shift recently about the behaviors of folks that are starting to look out for solutions, or let's say trying to understand their behavioral buying process recently? Was there a shift that's going on? Talking about post COVID and things like that. So.
I think the shift has been happening over the past 5 years, maybe even 10, but certainly the past five. And in particular in the B2B market, the business to business market that Altitude operates in, that is really attributed to the internet and to how buyers are, whether you are a B2B business or a B2C, a business to consumer business, direct to consumer. The internet is the holy grail, right? I mean, you
Mhm.
are searching for information one way or another. And whether you are a B2B business or a B2C business, at the end of the day, you're finding that information on the internet, and you still have some type of logical or emotional response to that content, that information that you find that helps really nurture, said buying journey to be able to make, an educated decision for, the product or service that they may be purchasing. So over the past 5 years, really seeing the B2B audiences and the B2B industries double down on building inbound sustainability
Hmm.
for web to lead sales funnels through their website, being experts, authorities, trustworthy providers within their niche, within their industry, so that they can attract all of those eyeballs that are looking for the different educational material to help them through their buying journey. And I think that's something that is incredibly prevalent right now, and that is really a must for all businesses, and certainly businesses in a B2B world, to the point where we're even starting to see a huge increase in business to business e-commerce
Yeah.
purchasing. And that's a whole nother can of worms, because that's not, a buy now type of decision for the most part, like it is when you are buying a widget off of Amazon. So certainly the internet and the expertise, authority, and trust, I'll continue to go back to that you need to be able to display and really own in your market and your niche, is something that is absolutely critical and crucial for the success of the buyer's journey and the buyer's funnel within these B2B niche audiences.
100%. You talked about like e-commerce. So, marketplaces are prevalent, like, G2.com and um, Gartner, Peer Insights, I believe, Trust Radius. So, a lot of these buyers are starting to look into online reviews first before, let's say, subscribing to a SaaS product or whatever have you. So, definitely, I do believe it's an interesting shift of mindset. It's becoming more of like an e-commerce type of transaction, as opposed to the traditional type of solution selling. So, on a flip side, we talked about B2C, right? So, as a real estate investor, what insights can you share, coming from some of the past adversity, like, the bubble that happened more than a decade ago? So, US, and at the same time Philippines, I'm from Philippines, by the way, um, can learn, prepare, predict, and hopefully anticipate any future catastrophic challenges that the economy may bring, because there's a lot of fear mongerings going on out there about the upcoming recession and inflation and things like that. So maybe if there are some insights that you can share to our audience, that'll be a great help in terms of motivation.
Well, at least here in the United States, and I think it is a general global trend, we are seeing uh, what I'll call a renter's nation.
Mhm.
Home buying is still through the roof in a way with COVID. That was incredibly, incredibly competitive market. here in the United States with first-time home buyers, or even just people looking to upgrade into another home, and the
Hmm.
market was so crazy with low interest rates, making the market flooded with a lot of inventory, and then a ton of buyers because nobody was buying for that first year of COVID. And so it
Hmm.
just all got slammed over the past 12, 18 months. And prices were even a little inflated, and a little, I mean, certainly were inflated. We're starting to see that level out now, particularly around, the home buying. Um, that definitely is due to some of the interest rates. We're seeing highest interest rates now from the feds, at least since the mid 2000s. And so that is having an effect where there is less inventory on the market because the sellers are not necessarily going to sell for the margin that they need to make, particularly because if you had half of a brain, you refinanced during, COVID, the last 2 years or so when interest rates were so incredibly low. And so, holding makes a ton of sense, but also just pricing out then the affordability for home buyers. And again, particularly first time home buyers with interest rates that really bumps the ability to purchase a home for
Hmm.
what maybe was the same, price 2 years ago at an interest rate of 3.5%. Now at 7.5%, that is a significant, cost that is taken into account. So
Hmm.
that's what we see here in the United States. And speaking towards the renter nation, that really allows and makes more people want to rent for a longer period of time to try to wait until the interest rates drop, right? Or even just in the simple fact of, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with mowing the grass or with
Hmm.
something breaking or with, some of the headaches that can come with owning a home. Those costs, people say, oh, you just throw money away renting to the landlord, but it really is a peace of mind, and it gives you something, uh, flexibility, freedom. You can pick up and leave and not worry about it really almost at any time that you want. And that's something that you just can't do with owning a house. And certainly,
Right.
whether it's fixing the roof, whether it's insurance, whether it's property taxes, there's all these different, fees, if you will, that are hidden behind home ownership that don't come out necessarily in the sale price.
Right. Yeah. It's somehow the same in terms of what's happening in Philippines, where the interest rates are skyrocketing, and then due to gas prices and things like that. And then you're right. I agree, and hopefully the listeners can learn from it as well. Where instead of you know taking out a mortgage loan or buying a house, I think it's more economic to do renting would be a good option. And yeah, I have a few assets, and we're actually thinking about renting it. So thank you for that insight. We'll definitely discuss that with my family. So and with regard to other areas, especially since being a people manager for a long time now, from your perspective, Lois, how do you view career growth for your teams, and then you know like failure and learning from a positive and constructive lens? How do you kind of hone your teams to success?
Sure. Without failure, there is no change. There is no growth. And you kind of just live in this comfortable, stagnant world, hopefully comfortable, at least in that regard. And so failure is huge. And you can take it from a small micro example within B2B marketing and pushing out digital ad campaigns. When we first start pushing that out for a client, we are testing, we are anticipating failure, and that is going to help us learn to be able to understand what is working and what do we really want to spend our time and dollars on to drive the most effective results in the long term. And at the grander scale, particularly with teams at altitude, we really have doubled down on developing a high performing team. We're 30 full time. We're mostly all located here in Pennsylvania, working together as an integrated, holistic group. And with that, it requires communication and skill sets of varying different people and varying different styles.
Hmm.
And so we need to be able to adapt to that and be able to change how we communicate effectively to drive a common goal forward for the company or for the client. It's again not necessarily for ourselves and our own ego and what the work is, but for the
Hmm.
overall best end result. From a career growth standpoint, you have to find something that is true to you, that you are happy in doing. I mean, sure, your job or your business or whatever, your that day to day may be, you might not like it 100% of the time or be having the most great day every single day, but finding something that you enjoy 70, 80% of the time, and you're working with a really great group of people that you enjoy mostly 100 of the time, that's where you're going to see success for yourself and really find fulfillment and happiness in what you do. And I think that is really crucial because by surrounding yourself with activities that are fulfilling for you, as well as a team that can help push you and inspire you, that's going to allow you to grow into a different individual than you were the previous year or years past, and help you break through some of those glass ceilings within your career to really identify, you know, where do I want to go? What does this mean for me? What type of impact do I want to have? And again, that's going to be very, very different based on the communication styles and the type of individual that their dreams or goals have. And there's really no right or wrong answer.
Hmm. Hmm. Beautiful. I love that. Being true to what you want will, make things come natural. So yes, 100%, I agree. And going back to altitude marketing, in terms of, you mentioned about campaign ads and other programs. What are some of the challenges the organization solve for your customers? So for example, are you optimizing digital marketing, data, social media, lead generation, for the benefit of our listeners so they can easily reach out to you?
Sure. Yeah. Altitude is a strategic B2B marketing agency. We're an integrated full service marketing firm that leads with strategy, data, and business goals to drive amazing results. Ultimately, in that business to business realm, working with clients in the life sciences, enterprise software, and established manufacturing and other technical industries are really some core focuses that we serve. And from a services standpoint, um, we are full service, holistic. We are providing branding, web development, digital marketing, social media, trade show help, process automation, content marketing, SEO, graphic design, public relations, video creation, and more. And ultimately, that allows us to help our clients build visibility, instill credibility in the market, and ultimately drive qualified leads and nurture them over time. Again, many times a longer sales cycle in these niche, technical, regulated, or compliant spaces that they're working in. developing inbound sustainability, particularly inbound lead generation and sustainability around that is something that we've been able to carve out and do for ourselves as a business, and that we practice what we preach. So we are able to do that for our clients, again, to be able to really fight up into their niche in the marketplace, many of them outflanking and outsmarting the competition, not outspending, as they are not the 800-pound gorilla in their space.
Hmm. And I'm assuming you also work worldwide clients, or is it?
We do.
Mhm.
We do. We have clients all over the world. I would say the bulk are certainly North American based, but we have clients in Europe, in South America, in a variety of places in Asia, and really everywhere in between, Africa. And so, really being able to understand the nuances of these different geographical locations, and then the messaging and the positioning to be able to not just only translate, but be able to localize the different language elements within the marketing tax that we're pushing forward are super important. Most of these global companies that we're working with, they have different focuses in these different geographical areas. And so it's not just a blast and spray type of mentality for their marketing strategy across the globe. It is a very pointed and deliberate strategy for these different geographical locations based on their product offering, in that geographic locale, or other factors that we may be trying to bring to light in those areas.
Awesome. And I'm assuming you've experienced a lot of business case studies. Were there some challenging projects, and with good reason you were able to flip it around and become a success story? That would be a good insight as well for our listeners.
Sure. And I'll give a COVID example. One of our clients is a manufacturer of cables and cords and wires in the music industry. Plugging in amps and pedals and guitars and they make those cords that allow that to happen. And when we first engaged with them, and this was mid 20 end of 2020, maybe early 2021, they biggest thing on their minds was getting to the large industry trade show that happens every year. Who's who is there, and you got to make a big splash every single year. And we hit adversity. That big trade show, it got pushed, as many trade shows did in the 2020 2021 time. And so now we were spinning our wheels a little bit to be able to deliver results for this client that we weren't initially contracted for and that we weren't initially preparing for, but we had to adapt. We had to make the best out of what we could to figure out what can we do to market this company outside of a trade show to continue to build visibility so that when the trade show does come along, I think it was pushed for 6 months, so that when it does come along, we can really not only make the most of the show itself, but have a lot of momentum going into the show from our marketing efforts that we kind of had to adapt
Hmm.
with at the time. So fast forward now, a year and some change. They've been a great client. Not only did that show go really, really well, we sent some of our team out to California to meet them and to partake in the show. But we've also continued to be their marketing agency of record. And earlier, a month or two ago, they signed on, renewed their contract with us, and not just for 1 year, but for 2 years, because we were able to really prove the return on investment, not just for Altitude, but for marketing as a whole, both for the trade shows and for the other digital marketing initiatives that we're doing to raise their brand visibility in a really crowded and expensive space.
Oh, nice. For maybe for some providers. They could have just dropped, the project and just reconvene after COVID. But I love that. I love the showing flexibility and adaptation is something that's would pay off for the longer term engagement. So yeah. So before I let you go, so in terms of advice that you can give to someone who's just starting to build their team, or maybe you know s- conceptualizing their business, what will be some of the suggestions, or the learnings that you can share to them?
First, for yourself, be unapologetically you. I think if you are authentic to that, it is really, really difficult for anything or anyone to stop you and get in your way. There's going to be challenges. There's peaks and valleys in life, and that is just how it rolls. But how you handle the peaks is also how you handle the valleys. So keeping that in mind, and again, being unapologetically you and authentic to yourself will ensure that whether it's an initiative that you're pushing forward single handedly, or you're working with a team, either a manager or maybe you are managing, and being able to communicate appropriately and effectively to build that common goal and common result. I think the second thing I would say is just listening. Listening more than speaking, being able
Hmm.
to understand why, what, how, who. These are different things that, as you're building a team, again, whether you are the manager or you are managing, being able to understand the needs of the individuals that you are working with and how your communication style will match to be able to build a common thread with each other, and then be able to push that forward to be able to achieve that desired end result, will be really, really key to the success of the project, of the organization, of the business. And then the third thing, do it. Just go out there, put yourself in, make sure you are getting the opportunities, say yes, and make sure that you have the time for yourself to reflect on those activities that you may be taking on, so that you're not overfilling your plate, but ultimately make sure that you're meeting new people. You are putting yourself out there to promote yourself, especially if you're starting a new business. Nobody else is going to do that for you. And so those are the three things that I would hone in on.
That's awesome. I believe there's a lot of value that you guys can bring to the table, especially in helping organizations understand their unique selling points. Trying to expand their network, their outreach. So, for the benefit of our audience, the listeners, where can they find you? Like website? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on socials? So the teams can reach out.
Sure. On pretty much all socials, it's my full name, Lewis Weicker Holzman. That's your Instagrams, your Facebooks, your LinkedIn, Twitters. I don't really use too much of those. Certainly, LinkedIn probably would be the best and most relevant here. The website, altitudemarketing.com. That's where you can find more information about Altitude, the full service B2B integrated marketing agency. And you can see not only myself within our team page, but also our full-time team of 30 that really makes the place run. And then from there, um, I would also call out AllentownYoungProfessionals.org. And that's a nonprofit that I, along with some other friends over the past 6 years, have founded to be able to give younger generation a voice and some messages here within the local city that we live in. And so those are some places that you could find me.
Awesome. And to our listeners, we'll also include the links to the description so you can easily check out and inquire. So that's it for now. Lois, thank you so much for taking the time you are a blessing to the world. Keep doing what you're doing, inspiring people, as well as helping clients. So to everyone, you're listening to Set to Fail podcast. This is Joseph Indolos. I look forward in the next episode. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks for having me, Joseph.
Thank you, Lois. And there you have it. We hope you enjoyed and learned a lot in this episode. And if you did, please subscribe to YouTube, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, also reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcast. This would really help the show to continue creating more and more insightful content for us to learn together. Thank you very much. Have a great day.